Have you ever wondered what the future holds? Whether you're beginning your career or have retired, this question may be present in our minds. And as we honor our graduates today, I would like to share some words that hopefully will improve their lives as well as all of our lives as well. The key to living is this: learn how to live from the author of life. You can search the entire internet, read all the self-help books on the shelves, study the vast religions of the world, travel the seven seas, and you will still not find the answers to your questions about life until you learn how to live from the author of life. Blaise Pascal was a French mathematician who lived in the 1600s. And one of his famous quotes has been condensed to this thought, and that is, there is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man which cannot be filled by any created thing, but only by God, the Creator, made known through Jesus Christ. Learn how to live from the author of life, because he is honest with you. You see, there are people all around you who are willing to reinforce or confirm your thoughts or your beliefs, even if your thoughts or beliefs are wrong. In our society, we call these people yes men. These are the people who tell you what you want to hear. The Apostle Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy 4 verses 3 through 4 about these type of people. He said, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but wanting to have their ears tickled, they will accumulate for themselves teachers in accordance to their own desires, and will turn away their ears from the truth, and will turn aside to myths." This is not an uncommon thing or a new process that we've seen in our society, but it was going on even in Paul and Timothy's day. People telling you what you want to hear. You see, if you pay some people enough money, give them enough praise, reward them with power or the potential of any of the above, then they will tell you what you want to hear, even if it's detrimental to your well-being. Because of his character, God will always be honest with you. When we learn how to live from him, the author of life, we understand that life is not always the way that it is portrayed by others in the world. Life is not always ice cream and ponies. And although life can be wonderful, it can also at times be brutal, tiring, and even difficult. And it is the follower of Christ who can understand that even in difficult days, that life is still worth the living because God is with us. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. Solomon gives us this concept. He says there is a appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every event under heaven. A time to give birth and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to shun embracing. A time to search and a time to give up as lost. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear apart, a time to sew together. A time to be silent, a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. The honesties of life. God is sharing those with us. See, God truthfully informs us that there are ebbs and flows during our lives. And sometimes we're on the mountaintop and sometimes we're in the valley. I like the old country saying that goes, sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. That's the way life is. Sometimes our hopes and dreams get splattered across the windshield of life. And other times the realities of life far surpass the greatest of our imaginations. I would guess that most of us here today would say that there has never been anyone closer to God than Jesus Christ. No person has ever walked on the earth who is closer to God than our Savior. Right? And as you read the Gospels, what experiences did he have? Were there days of devotion as well as denial? Yeah. There were days of joy as well as sorrow. There were days of praise as well as persecution. Admiration as well as hatred. And so if Jesus experienced all these different circumstances in his life, should we be surprised when we face good times as well as bad? You see, no matter the challenges of life, we know that God is working. John read a portion of Romans this morning, and Romans 8:28 states, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Paul does not say all things are good, but God works things to good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. The roadblocks that we may face may cause the detour that we need to take. We may not understand how. Most often we may not understand why. But we can always be assured that God is working in the lives of his people. So when you learn from the author of life, learning how to live from the author of life, you can always know that he will be truthful with you. When you learn from the author of life how to live from the author of life, you can find peace. I was reading an article this past week by a gentleman by the name of Bruce Feller, and he had spent the last 6 years going across the country asking people and speaking to people about their work lives. And one of the things that he said was this, quote, "My data shows that the average worker goes through 20 work quakes in the course of their lives. That's one every 2.5 years. And he says a work quake is a moment of disruption, reevaluation, or reinvention. Women go through these moments more frequently than men, and each generation more than the prior one. If this is correct, or anywhere near being correct, then know this. In your life and in your work life, life is going to throw you curveballs. And you'd better learn how to hit the curve. See, there are going to be times in our lives when we face the unexpected. But if we have learned how to live from the author of life, then we realize that the unexpected is going to happen. And by realizing that, we can find peace. See, we find peace by not allowing the unexpected to become something it is not. If you get overlooked for a promotion, the promotion that you may deserve, the promotion that you were expecting, that doesn't mean that your career is over. If a relationship takes a turn that you weren't expecting or wanting, that does not mean your life is ruined. And in order to have peace, we must put things into the proper perspective. And by putting life into the proper perspective, we can deal with the trials that we know that we will face. The problem that many people experience is they think that they'll never face trials. That's not true. We will face trials in our life, and we can find peace knowing that Christ is willing to walk with us if we're willing to walk with him. Jesus said in John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, nor let it be fearful." You see, when we choose to learn how to live from the author of life, we can find peace. Because we know that he's there. We know that problems will arise. It's life. We know Jesus suffered problems and trials, ridicule, people turning their back on him. We will face trials as well, but we can find peace. In addition to that, when you learn how to live from the author of life, you will choose, or you will need to choose, how to put things into the proper perspective. You see, Jesus gave us the perspective on life when asked which one was the greatest commandment of the law. And he said this, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. And the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets." You see, these words of Jesus put life into the proper perspective. During your lives, people will challenge you on your way of thinking, on this way of thinking. They will press you to change your core beliefs, but if you stay true to these two principles, you will find peace, happiness, and blessings. See, our relationship with God is paramount. It is the greatest relationship that any person can ever have, is that relationship with God. No other relationship compares to this one. It is this relationship upon which all other relationships are hinged. When we hold a Christian worldview, then that view helps us see the world as God sees it, and helps us to approve or reject the actions and deeds and thoughts that others express. Today, we live in a divided society, not because God's people do not like certain people, but because they see the world through God's eyes and through God's teachings and do not condone the actions of certain people. As God's people, we should be able to echo the words of Dr. Martin Luther King when he said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged, where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." When we look at the heart of people, which are often demonstrated by their actions, then we are looking at others the way that God looks at people, by looking at their hearts, not their physical appearance. And this leads us to that second portion of the teaching, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. How we treat others should be guided by how we want to be treated, Jesus tells us. Love our neighbors as ourselves. If everybody could keep that in mind, this world would be a much better place. It's interesting that when Luke records a time when these words were spoken by Jesus, Someone asked Jesus, "And who's my neighbor?" And upon hearing that, Jesus told a parable. Do you remember what the parable was? To who your neighbor is? The parable of the Good Samaritan. The parable of the Good Samaritan. It gives us many things to think about, but one of the things that it tells us is that helping others can have a cost. In the story of the Good Samaritan, the Samaritan took upon himself the entire financial responsibility to help this man. You see, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper as he was about to leave. And he said this, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I return, I will repay you." The Samaritan wasn't just there to pat him on the back. He was taking a responsibility that was going to cost him already 2 denarii. And he was saying, whatever more he needs, take care of it, and I will reimburse you when I return. There's a cost. And sometimes when we learn from how to live from the author of life, we realize that there is a cost to helping others. But we should do it. Proverbs 3:27 through 28 states, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, 'Go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it,' when you have it with you." You see, we have a responsibility to one another, and when we learn how to live from the author of life, we understand that giving is a part of living. You see, as followers of Christ, we accept the call to be a servant. Jesus exemplified what it meant to serve others, and we are to serve others as well. We are to serve. We are to give of our time in order that others might find the eternal blessings that we have found. We serve by giving our time, our talents, our possessions. Most of us here have a positive work ethic. And most people go out and earn a living for their family, which is good. That's admirable. And it's appropriate, because the Bible talks about the importance of work. But there's also another reason that we work. Secluded in the book of Ephesians, it's often overlooked. Paul is laying out some of the principles for the Christian walk and how the Christian should live. And there in chapter 4 of the book of Ephesians, verse 28, he lays out these words. "He who steals must steal no longer, but rather he must labor, performing with his own hands what is good." Now catch this. "So that he will have something to share with one who has need." Wow. Not only do I labor to take care of my family, I labor so that I have something to share with someone who may be in need. Our labors are not only for our benefit, but they are there to help us to share with others who are in need. Jamesley's project demonstrates that. Sharing with those in Milo who have a need. We work in order to generate income so that we can help others, so that we can take care of our families, so that we can give our tithes and offerings to aid in advancing the kingdom. Our labors are not just so that we can pay our bills and accumulate more toys. We have a reason for how we live. And young people and all their friends and family who are with us today. We can all learn how to live from the author of life. Our futures stand before us. We can try it on our own and see how that gets us, or we can learn how to live from the author of life. The choice is ours.